It's probably fair to say that most of us don't like conflict. However, our first guest this morning wants you to know that conflict can be a good thing if handled in a healthy way. Deborah Fox is the author of Finding Your Moxie, Myths and Lies Successful Women Kicked to the Curb. We are delighted to welcome Deborah to Charlotte today. Good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine, thank you.
We should mention you're also a speaker and a trainer, and you say conflict resolution and communication is the #1 topic you were asked to speak about.
Number one, for 15 years, when companies call me, they need me to come in and talk about conflict, how to handle conflict, how to set boundaries, how to have healthy conflict. Yes.
And even your personal clients, they ask for this too.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is a big deal. This applies to everybody. You have a chapter in your book, which is great, by the way. It's called Conflict is Not a Dirty Word. That the purpose of conflict, it's not argument or victory, it's to create understanding. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, one of the Deborah's ditties that are the Moxie minutes that I talk about in the book is that conflict, the purpose of conflict is not victory but understanding. And a lot of times people will avoid conflict thinking that it will go away. But much like a splinter in the hand, if you don't address it, it could fester or get worse. And then every time you cross paths with someone, you are in the middle of a conflict, verbally or non-verbally, but there's tension in the room. And sometimes we don't address it because we don't know how.
Right. So that's how you're going to help us. How do we address it if we have conflict with somebody?
Right. I think the very first important thing that we have to understand about conflict is that it has to begin with emotional intelligence. And there are really 4 key parts to emotional intelligence. They are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management.
Okay. Can we break those down and explain what you mean by each of those?
You bet. Self-awareness, in a nutshell, is understanding what are my hot buttons and why. What are my triggers? What is it that people can say or do that causes me to have a knee-jerk reaction? Self-management, as I explain it, being an equestrian growing up, is pulling the rein in on that runaway emotion. You know, how many times have we had an emotional outburst and then we wake up the next day and go, oh my gosh, I wonder if I still have a job.
Right.
You know, and it's a matter of pulling that rein in and thinking and processing before you have that knee-jerk reaction. Social awareness is being aware of how your actions and behaviors negatively impact the people around you. So just being aware of your surroundings and understanding that you could be actually hitting somebody else's hot button and not be aware of it. And relationship management is, if I do hit a hot button, that's the healthy conflict. How do we sit down and work through that?
Okay, so let's take us to that part now. How do we work through that? You say, in part, learn how to script conversations.
Yes. It's important that you sit down and sort of script out in advance what it is you're wanting to address. The #1 question that I teach people is this: what is my desired outcome?
That's good.
What is my desired outcome? Am I picking this battle for the principle of the thing? And I hear people say that all the time. Well, it's the principle of the thing. The reality is that is the wrong reason to pick a battle. That is the #1 wrong reason to pick a battle. There has to be some kind of personal harm. And so in the book, I talk about the question that I teach people to ask themselves. Does this person, this comment, this situation, this event negatively affect me financially, physically, or professionally? And if the answer is no, 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 let it go. For now, at least, yes.
Okay, then don't bring it up. That's not a battle you should choose.
Not at this time. And that can change. You know, the answers can change.
Well, what if someone said to you, though, Deborah, but that comment, no, it didn't affect me physically, but it did emotionally, and it hurt my feelings, and they consider that, you know, physical harm in some
because
way.
It creates stress.
Correct.
And it makes them nervous and uptight, and they can't sleep at night.
Right.
And they consider that a physical response. Technically, that's an emotional response. So now we've come full circle back to emotional intelligence. Can you control those emotions? Are you aware of your hot buttons? And why do we let that bother us?
So many people are not, though. You know, and I think getting to that self-awareness and really being honest with yourself, it requires asking yourself some very serious questions.
Right.
And you might not like the answers when you think, you know what, I do kind of have an issue with that. I do tend to fly off the handle or take offense too quickly when this kind of a thing is said to me.
Exactly. And I have another Moxie minute that I teach. Always assume the best until you know the worst.
Yeah.
Always assume the best case scenario in a situation until you have the facts, until you truly know what somebody's motive was. I find that we assume a lot of motives from people, and a lot of times we're wrong.
And I think that comes back to the conflict, though. It's because people don't know how to have healthy conflict resolution, and that's why they walk around assuming the worst.
Right.
Oh, I know he meant this by that.
I know that's what he meant. Yeah, and you know, it's interesting too because men and women handle conflict differently. And while there's an exception to everything I would say to you, men for the most part tend to confront their conflict right up front. Didn't appreciate what you did. Please don't do that again. Or they might even say, please don't do that again, or you know, whatever it is. And then when they're done, they go get a beer, or they go have lunch, or they go play golf. You know, if a woman, you know, Colleen, if you have an issue with Bob, everybody in the workplace may know except Bob. Right. You know, because we don't go to the one person who can do something about it. Right. We will tell everyone else trying to get input or advice or whatever.
So true. Okay, so let's say you've answered all those questions that you posed just a moment ago, and the answer is yes. I do. I know what I'm looking for here. I know what I want the resolution to be. I'm going to say something. Right. That's when you kind of script the conversation?
That's when you script. And the script that I teach, there are a lot of scripts out there, but the one I teach most is called the EASY script. EASY. E stands for express how it affects you. A stands for address the situation. What is the situation that you're wanting to have an outcome for, right? S stands for specify the desired behavior. What would you like to see happen instead? And then close with a yes or no question. And that should be a buy-in question, not a do you understand question.
Okay.
A buy-in question would be, is that something we can work on together? Is that a resolution that you can agree with? That's a buy-in question.
Okay. How do we know when it is time to choose this particular battle?
Again, I think when it has caused you some kind of personal effect, so whether it's financially, physically, professionally,
right.
That's the very first question you want to ask. I try really, really hard not to pick battles, not to address situations just because it hurt my feelings. Because I have to realize sometimes that that could just be me and that wasn't their intent at all. The other thing that I will say is this. If someone repeats that behavior, and that's going to bother you, then you may have to say something the first time or two. Behavior let go is rewarded. Behavior rewarded is repeated.
That's good. And this applies to your personal life as well,
absolutely,
too, right?
Absolutely, yeah. In my business seminars, I mean, I teach corporate seminars for companies all over the globe, and they always say to me, I think this is going to help in my marriage and my children. Yeah, it really does.
This is good stuff. Again, Deborah Fox is a speaker, trainer, and author. Her book is called Finding Your Moxie. It's great. Log on to imagedevelopmentgroup.com, imagedevelopmentgroup.com for more information. I think everyone should get a copy of your book. I think every company out there should hire you to come speak.
I think so, too.
You're great.
Thank you.
If I had any say, you'd be hired here.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Deborah, thank you so much.